प्रजायाणं नमो लोये सब साहूणं एसो पंचनमोकारो सव पावपणासनो मंगलाणं च सर्वेसिं परमं हवै मंगलम् ॐ नमो अरिहन्ताणम्।
Thank you, Nilpa. So welcome again to Young Jane's first virtual event. Today's event is Living with Jain Values, and we're going to be talking about organ and stem cell donation, giving the gift of life. Now, what we're going to explore in today's session is, why is this topic important? Have you thought of joining the stem cell donor register? What are your preferences for organ donation, and what information might help you to think about those choices for you and your family? If you've made a decision, then have you shared this preference with your family and friends and the ways in which you can do that? We're really going to find out more about how this can impact anyone and how we can all play our role to help. Now, we're going to start our session with a poll of our audience to really find out a bit more. So if I can ask Bhavesh to share our poll, hopefully those of you who are on a laptop or your phone, you'll be able to see the question. And the question is really, how well informed are you about this topic, about stem cell and organ donation? And on a scale of 10, give us a sense of 1 being not at all and 10 being very informed, maybe an expert, and maybe you should also be joining our panel in the future. So give us a sense of how much do you know, do you think? We've got still a few more seconds to enter that poll, and then we'll try and share some of the results with our audience. Our speakers may be skewing some of this data. Okay, I think we've got most people seem to have responded there. Bhavesh, can we end the poll and try and share that data for everyone to see? And hopefully you can now all see the results. So I think we've got a few 2s and 3s in the room, some 6s and 7s, and we do have a few 10s there. I do wonder if some of those might be my speakers who have also done the poll, but hopefully by the end of it, we can see a shift in that. Thank you. Stop sharing those results. If we then move to my next slide. So we're really grateful to be joined by members of our community who have become experts through their own personal journeys that they're going to share with you today. Our first speaker is Kirpa Gudka. Kirpa is going to be sharing her family's journey on the search for a stem cell donor for her son Veer, and in the process raising awareness to the wider community about stem cell donation. She works as a mental health specialist pharmacist. So Kirpa, tell us more about your family's journey and how this topic came to be so significant.
Hi, Jay Janendra and Nija, thank you for inviting me to speak today, and thanks Young Janes for, such an important topic. So really thankful to be at this event. So our story started 2 years ago when our then 3-year-old son, Veer, was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called Fanconi anemia. And part of this condition meant that his bone marrow wasn't working to produce the blood cells that his body needed. And we were told that he needed a bone marrow transplant, which is also known as a stem cell transplant. So for this, for it to be successful, he needed a stem cell donor, a matching stem cell donor. And sadly for us, no one in our family was a match for him. And neither were the 1.4 million people already registered as stem cell donors worldwide. So then we realized we had a real, it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack to get his perfect match in time. So we took matters in our own hands and we started a campaign called Help Veer Now. And us, together with our friends and family, we held swab drives nationally and globally. We tried raising awareness via social media. We used other forms of media like tabloids, the news, TV, radio, and we held events at schools and workplaces. We did what we could to basically raise awareness of the issue, tried to get people to register. And after a year of campaigning, we managed to, well, an amazing 10,000 people registered as stem cell donors as part of this campaign. And thankfully, also in that time, VIR managed to get a handful of 90% matches. So 2 years on from the start of this journey, Vir's had his transplant now. We were very lucky, and he's doing well and recovering at home.
We're really pleased that Vir's doing so well and was successful in finding a match. And what do you think are the barriers for people not registering on the stem cell donor register?
Yeah, we during our time campaigning, we came across lots of different reasons why people have not registered or are not registering as stem cell donors. And I think the main reason is just lack of awareness. So many people only heard about stem cell donation once we started sharing our stories with them. And I think that's a problem kind of nationally, probably globally as well, that people are just not aware of the need of stem cell donation. It's not something where you can automatically opt into. You have to actually physically register to be a stem cell donor, and if you don't know about it, you wouldn't do it, obviously. So that's why campaigns like ours are really important, and other campaigns that have shared their stories to their community so that people are aware. And understandably, people are probably fearful. I mean, the words transplant and donation, and it all sounds a bit scary, but actually if you really understand what is involved in stem cell donation, you'd kind of realize that it's not scary. It's really quite straightforward. To donate your stem cells, all you'd need to do is it's basically like giving blood. They would take your blood from you, they draw out the stem cells from the blood, and then they return the blood back to you. So in fact, you don't actually lose out on anything. Anything you do lose, you regenerate in a few days. So it's a really, really simple process. It takes a few hours of your time at a clinic local to you. And in the majority of the cases, how you donate your stem cells if you were under someone. In 10% of cases, you may have to go in hospital under general anaesthetic, and they would take it from your hip bone directly. But even that, the most that you would feel is a bit of flu-like symptoms, and it's such a little bit of discomfort to feel just to save people's lives. I mean, Veer wouldn't be as well as he is now if it wasn't for the person that donated for him. So it's really, really simple, and people shouldn't be fearful. Are well informed. It is a really straightforward process. Also, some people might feel like it's an inconvenience. I have to take time off work. I'm going to have to, who's going to look after my kids, and how much is it going to cost? Well, basically, the charities, DKMS and Auntie Nolan, they will really look after you. If you are a match for someone, you will get a full health check. You can't really get that anywhere else. They will make sure you are well. They'll pay for your expenses. They'll help speak to your employer to get time off if you need it. You might not even need time off work. They'll cover any childcare costs. So make it as convenient as possible for you. So it really couldn't be simpler. And I guess if it's not affecting someone you love, you probably think, well, why should I bother? Why should I register? I mean, unless you know the person that needs it, you kind of don't incline to do it. But there is a big wider issue here. Things like cancer, blood cancers, where stem cell donation is really important, and loads of other conditions. It's so important that we have more people on these registers, because it's becoming a lot more common. And for us, we didn't know that this was going to happen to our family, and it came out of the blue for us. So you never know when it can affect someone you love, and if we have more people on the registers to start off with, it will just help the whole community. And another problem that we noticed about people not wanting to register was because of religious views, or they might have heard from a religious perspective that it's not in the religion to donate. So I always think about it like this: like, if you're in a situation where you had to receive organs to save your own life, or receive stem cells to save your own life or your family's life, would you accept it to save your life? Would you do it? Most likely you would, right? And if you're willing to accept someone else's organs or stem cells, then why would you not want to donate as well? So if you're willing to accept, I think you should also be willing to donate. So that's also something that I've kind of learned in our process. So yeah, I mean, it is very simple, and I mean, thank you for everyone for attending to even take the first steps, just raise awareness, to spread the word and try and break down these barriers.
That's really helpful to understand how simple it was. I don't think many of us in the audience might know that a simple blood test is all it is, and they might be imagining something that's a bit more scary or a bit more surgical, and that's really great to know.
Yeah.
And Kip, I know you shared a little bit about why it's important for our community, but can you just tell us more about that? Why is it more significant for our Jain community and ethnic background?
Yeah, I mean, it's so significant because if you are of BAME origin, you only have a 20% chance of finding a perfect stem cell match, which is really, really low. Caucasians, they have an almost 70% chance of finding their perfect match. And the reason why there's such a big difference is because there are not enough BAME people registered on these stem cell registers. So it is in all of our interest to get South Asian people to be aware of the situation, to register, to help all our South Asian families. And the only way we would do that is if we were to all register. And it is our duty. Only 2% of the UK population are actually registered as stem cell donors. So that is really, really low, like shockingly low. And there is such a long way to go to increase these numbers. And so imagine if as a community we can increase the numbers, how much of a difference we can make.
Yeah, and just for everyone, can you just break down what BAME is for everyone?
So it's all the ethnic, I've forgotten what it stands for.
So Black and minority ethnicities, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, go on.
Yeah, so it's all the ethnic minority groups. So South Asians being one of them, like you said, the black community as well. So if we can get more of those communities to register as stem cell donors, it will really, really help the chances of people like us.
Great, thank you. And obviously you've had a really challenging journey and overcome it. And I know you and Neera are both spiritual. I'd be really interested to hear more about how did faith help you in your journey?
Yeah, we are very religious, and we have been brought up, with the Jain principles, and we have a good understanding of the Jain dharma. And what, I think if it wasn't for the religion, I don't know how we would have got through this whole process. Firstly, to find out that Veer had this condition was shocking. It came out of the blue, and you automatically think, oh, why does it happen to us? Why did it happen to my son? He's only 3 years old. It's not really fair, and all of, you have those thoughts, and everyone naturally would. But I think understanding the Jain principles, it helped us accept the situation. This has happened to us because of our past karmas, and once this kind of goes through its fruition process, like, we have to kind of bear the fruits of what we have done in the past, I guess. And the only way that we can make this a more positive outcome is to remain positive and try and bind good karmas out of this situation. If we sit here and wallow about the situation, I think it's just not going to help anything or anyone. And so we just use our Jain, like, understanding of the Jain knowledge of trying to just remain positive, use this story and try and help other people, and create positive outcomes for us.
Thank you, that's really beautiful to hear. And I think that's a theme we'll hear across all our speakers, just this humble acceptance of a situation. And I think all of you being here as speakers is really a triumph of that, of sharing your expert knowledge with the community and really creating awareness through the event today. So we thank you all for that. So tell us more, how can people find out more, and how can they actually sign up to be a stem cell donor if at the end of this they'd like to?
So if you visit our website, which is helpveernow.org, there's a lot more information there about how to register. But basically, if you're between the ages of 16 and 55 years old, you can register as stem cell donors. And ideally, the younger you are, the better donor you make. So please do encourage people. If you're not, within that age bracket, you can still encourage others to do it. And if you visit the website, so for instance, if you visit DKMS, which is one of the charities, you put in your details, they will send you a free swab kit, which looks like this. And inside you get a swab, which is just like this. And you basically swab the inside of your cheek. It's a lot simpler than the COVID swabs that we have to do. You're not having to put it up your nose or anything like that. Just the inside of your cheek for a minute, let it dry, put it back in the envelope, and then it's a free post envelope. You send it off. So it doesn't cost you anything. And once you've done that, you are registered. So it's really, really simple. And like I said, if you are then lucky enough to get the phone call to say you are a match for someone, the process to donate is very, very simple. And it's such an easy thing to do to save lives. And, we are so lucky that someone has done this for Veer, and we just want there to be a match for everyone that needs one in the future.
Great, thank you for sharing your story. Kirpa's son and my daughter we're at the same nursery, and Veer was the reason for my husband and I joining the stem cell donor register. Now, being a health professional, this has been something that I thought about and been meaning to do, but just hadn't quite got around to doing it. And Veer's story was really the key motivator in us taking that final step. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirpa, for sharing. We're going to move on to our next speaker now. If you do have any questions for Kirpa, please post them in the chat bar and we'll come to them at the end. Our next speaker is Prafula Shah. She's Secretary of Jodh, who you're going to hear about later as an organisation, a Jain community leader who many of you will know. She's an NHS blood and transfusion organ donation ambassador and a living kidney donor. So Prafula, thank you for joining us. Tell us about, where did your journey with organ donation begin?
Thank you, Anuja, and thank you, Young Jains, for hosting this wonderful event to raise awareness of both stem cell and organ donation. My journey with organ donation actually started about 25 years ago, and it's because my niece Shakti was born with a kidney that wasn't functioning properly, and so as a family, we've been aware for a long time that Shakti's options would be either a transplant later on in life or having to go on dialysis. But this didn't actually start in earnest until September 2017. Shakti was 24 then, and she went through education, university, did her master's at King's College, got a job. And we were originally told that by the time she's 12 or 13, she will need a transplant. So she did brilliantly, a really courageous young woman who basically went through all of that, did all of the education, got a job, and then in September 2017, her remaining kidney function, she only had one kidney, that kidney function dropped to 7%. And at that point, our whole family were having a conversation about what are the options. We were told that her best option was a living kidney donation, but of course she would also go on the transplant waiting list. So we as a family had an open, transparent conversation about it, and I'll share a bit more about that and the dynamics of that conversation in my talk a bit later. And we did the tests to see if any of us were a match for Shakti. And these tests actually not just a question of a blood test, it's about tissue testing, DNA. And so we were very fortunate that in our family there was a match, but unfortunately that person was not able to donate to Shakti. I wasn't actually a match for Shakti, but we explored another option to donate to Shakti. And during that journey to go through all the tests and everything, we realized that a lot of information was missing from what we knew and what we didn't know. So as a family, we also made an effort to find out a lot of details about what are the options for us. And shockingly, one thing we did find out was for the community that we come from, the waiting list is a lot longer for transplants, and also not enough people are stepping forward to donate. So it's almost like a double challenge. So that journey for me started in September 2017 to do all of the tests. And I think I'm pleased to say I had about 2 full body MOTs during that time. So thank you, NHS, for that. I got all of that free. Lots and lots of blood tests, lots of scans. So my kidneys were tested many times, because you're still their number one priority in terms of your own health and understanding whether you are going to be able to do this. And in March 2018, I donated my left kidney to Shakti.
That's a lovely story of sharing, and quite a long journey and over a long period of time. And I would have thought hopefully things will have even changed across the healthcare over that time. I'd really like to hear more about, and you mentioned this, family dynamics of those considering to be a donor, because I think that can be quite tricky for the person doing the asking, but also the family around them.
Absolutely, and I think that is actually one of the biggest challenges, apart from the fact that the waiting list is so long and that not many people are coming forward to actually donate the living donation from our communities. So we are actually quite close family, 5 sisters, mum, dad, and it was actually my dad that initiated that conversation many years ago and said, and if it's possible, they can take my kidney. And that was way back 20 years ago. Of course, Shakti was not going to need that kidney for many years to come. Sadly, my dad passed away by the time this all happened. And as a family, that having had those conversations early was really helpful. And I think a lot of people don't like talking about these very difficult and challenging things in a family setting, but there are a lot of really good advantages in doing it. And one of the advantages is that you know where everyone else is in the journey, and it's all an open, friendly family conversation. So you know, if, for example, for some people, and it happened in our family, the person who was the match couldn't donate because of a health reason, right? Also, it helps the professionals because you've had that conversation already. They're dealing with each of you individually, but because you've had the conversation and you know where everyone else is in that journey, it really helps them as well. So the fact that those conversations are difficult, some of the hospitals have an advocacy program where an advocate actually helps you with having those conversations. And I'm also very open to anyone contacting me to help those conversations because it is difficult. They can be quite dynamic in terms of, you know, who stands where. There are lots of considerations. So younger people in a family may be thinking, if I donate my kidney now, will I be able to have children later? You know, younger women in the community. Well, I have many people on a group that I support called Donate UK who have donated a kidney and gone on to have children. So actually, those sorts of conversations should be open and people should be able to raise those questions in a family environment. You know, elders in the community may be thinking, I can donate because money seva kariche, but actually, it may not be the best option because it's about longevity of that transplant as well. The best transplants for kidneys are living donation, and the younger you are, the better the kidney may be. The other thing I just wanted to add is the conversations are very good to approach from a perspective of, this is a problem for our family. What can we do to help that person or that friend in our friend circle?
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final question for you. You mentioned that, you know, you weren't a match, but you were still able to be a kidney donor. Tell us more how that came to come about.
So I guess the person that I am, when I was told that I'm not a match, I said, okay, what else can we do? How can we help Shakti to get this transplant quickly? We were then told about the UK kidney sharing scheme, and essentially this is like swapping kidneys. And the simplest way to explain it is anyone that is waiting and has somebody willing to donate for them can go into this database that is run by NHS Blood and Transplant. It is regulated by the Human Tissue Authority. And the database has a run every quarter, so 4 times a year, to match those waiting and match those that may be willing to donate. And by matching, it's not just ethnicity, it's about your tissue and blood matching. And so we decided to go for that option. The UK kidney sharing scheme is a fantastic scheme, giving those people an opportunity for a transplant that may not have a match in their own families or in the friends circle. We were put into the database in January 2018 run, and our transplant happened in March 2018 at the Royal Free Hospital. We were in a chain of 6. So around the UK, there were 6 surgeries that day, people swapping kidneys basically. So essentially, Shakti has a kidney from a hero somewhere, we don't know who. My kidney has gone to somebody, I don't know who. All I know is that he's in his 40s with 2 children, and he'd been waiting on the kidney transplant waiting list for 2 years. So it's an incredible scheme. And I thank my coordinator at Royal Free for telling us about it, because not very little is known about it. And I think it's a fantastic option for anyone that doesn't have a match in the family or in the friends circle or in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really wonderful to hear about the kidney sharing scheme. And I think that might be new for some people in our audience. So really great to know that you can not be a match and still be a donor and still be really helpful for that. So thank you so much, Professor Ben. If you do have any more questions, please post them in the chat bar and we'll come back to our speakers later in the session. I'm going to move on to our next speaker.
Anuja, can I just leave one little message for the community, please?
Sure.
So it is this. Please follow us on our social media channels. So there's JHOD _UK or JHOD UK, or look at our website for all of the really interesting information about organ donation, and that's www.jod.org.uk. One other thing I'd like everyone to do, please, is become an organ donation ambassador for us. Neetu Ben, in fact, was an ambassador promoting one of our campaigns, and that's how she really got into this subject and doing the fantastic work that she's now doing. My final message for the community is, please step up, sign up, and save lives, because it's really important. It's a community challenge and the community can help to solve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those messages. And we'll be sharing those websites at the end in the information section. And you partly introduced my next speaker, so thank you. Our next speaker is Neetu Ben Shah. She's a famous singer in our community and beyond. Her family was involved in making a video to raise awareness about having this important conversation. So I'd like to start by asking Neetu Ben, before we show the video very shortly, how did this become a topic of conversation in your family?
Thank you, Young Jains, for having me here on the panel. We were discussing on and off with the children, and we are 4 generations under one roof. So my mother-in-law is 95, and the rest of our children, we all live together. And during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people we knew who had passed away because of COVID. And we felt that this is the time to speak about organ donation, which I've been promoting for many years with Usha Ben Shah, now with Prafula as well, at our charity events. So we have had a lot of people talking about this, but nothing was materialistic till they saw the video. And I think that really helped a lot of people to sign up as well.
Thank you. And from your perspective, do you think there's any stigma in talking about this with family or older adults?
It is very important because our generation that we are very busy, we need to make time, maybe over dinners or coffees or lunches, to get everyone together and speak together, which will help each other. At least we will know what they will do for us, especially our children. We are happy. We've told them what we want to do, and they know about this. So when the time comes, at least they will be able to do what the needful, what our wishes are. They'll go by the wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. Being really explicit in your preferences and having those conversations early,
Absolutely.
in some ways can make it easier for your family at the time as well, if they're posed the question.
Absolutely.
And them knowing your personal preferences is really, really helpful for them as well.
Yeah.
As a family, what did you find most useful in speaking about it? How did it bring the family together?
Most useful was knowing what our children would have done if anything happened to them, and what our children would do for us if anything happened to us. They would know exactly how to go about the organ donations. And my mother-in-law, being 95, she was ready to give her whole body for to give away and for research. And she says, yes, I'd like to join in too. So that helped. And there are a lot of elderly people, vulnerable people who need this support, who need us to explain to them in our language, in the most simplest way, કે તમે વયા જાશો, ગુજરી જાશો, પછી જ તમારા અંગ વપરાશે, એની પહેલા કંઈ ટચ નહીં થાય. That is so important to make them feel very comfortable about their own body and themselves.
Yeah, and you're right, breaking it down into language that's simple for them and easily understandable. We will share George's website later, but that's got some great resources in other languages, including Gujarati, and even on the NHS's website. So they're really good, useful resources for those to explore that in other languages. We'd like to share and show your video, so we'll just hopefully get that loaded for everyone to watch. And what's really lovely is just to see a family over a dinner table having this conversation. Whilst it's loading, tell us more about how did the video come about?
We came, Prafulla, of course, approached us saying that we are a big family living together. And she suggested, why don't we do this? And I spoke to the children, and everybody, with respect, said, that's a good idea. And my husband being diabetic, he also joined in. So it doesn't matter if you have underlying health conditions, you can still donate. There's nothing wrong in it. So this is something for you to see and also understand the video, that getting together, talking about it, and make your heart feel a lot lighter. Not anxious about things, but much more lighter, and to understand the impact of organ donations.
Great, thank you for joining us. And I know you've got to go off to do another fundraising event, so thank you for your time. If we can play the video.
The Leave Them Certain advert on TV the other day about organ donation. Did you know that even if you've signed up to become an organ donor, but your family are unaware of your wishes, they can actually override your decision? Isn't that so shocking?
It's really shocking. And did you know that if you died at home, you can't be an organ donor even if you've registered, because there's just not enough time to do the process, so you have to die in the hospital?
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? તમને ખબર પડી આ લોકો શું કહે છે છોકરીઓ?
ના, મને નથી સમજ પડી.
એ લોકો ઓર્ગન ડોનેશન એટલે અંગના દાન દેવા માટે વાત કરે છે, કે અંગના દાન માટે એક ફોર્મ છે, એ ભરવાનો હોય આપણે ગુજરી જાય પછી એ અંગ બીજા કોઈને પણ કામ આવે.
આપણા જૈન ધર્મ છે એવું કરવાનું.
ધર્મ બધા ધર્મમાં છે, સેવાનું કામ છે.
હા.
અને આપણે ગુજરી જાય ને પછી આપણા બધાય અંગ બીજા કોઈને કામ આવે એવી રીતે એ લોકો કરી શકે.
હા તો મને મંજૂર છે.
મંજૂર છે ને? હા, સરસ.
Do you think you can still donate an organ if you've got underlying health conditions? Like, Dad, you've got diabetes, right?
I've got diabetes, but some of my organs are still working. When I die, hospitals can decide what organs they can use.
So, Dad, have you registered to become an organ donor?
I have registered to donate all my organs. Neetu, are you registered?
I am, and I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation now.
Yeah.
And at least with respect, you are able to fulfill our wishes as well. And I think the community should be aware of organ donation as well. All the Indian Hindu communities as well.
Yeah, you're right, because they do say that an organ donor of the same ethnic background as the recipient is more likely to be a successful match. So last year the law actually changed, and it was the opt-out law, which basically stated that unless you opted out, you were automatically considered to be an organ donor. But it is still the immediate family members who are the ultimate decision makers, so it's just really important to have this conversation.
So, what actually happens when someone passes away? Like, how does it all work?
Yeah, so there's a specialist nurse that talks to the person who's died's immediate family members.
I'm so glad that we're having this conversation together as a family. It's so important that we know what everyone's decisions and wishes are, and we can actually respect them.
You're muted.
Thank you. So thank you for that video. Leave Them Certain is a link that we will share at the end as well, that you can pass on to family and friends to see. I think that was a lovely conversation to just see around a dinner table, and hopefully one that we can all go away at the end of this session to initiate if we haven't already. Thank you so much, Nikabin. Were there any final words you wanted to say?
Don't forget to sign. Please do sign up. You will be needed anytime, and this is the pure seva which you can do with your own wishes to be fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and
Thank
good luck
you.
for your fundraising event next.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. If we can move on to my next slide. We'll just wait for that to load. So our next speaker is Kirit Bhai Modi. He's founder and chair of Jain Hindu Organ Donation Steering Group and a kidney donor recipient. Kirit Bhai is going to go through a short presentation for us where he'll hopefully tell us more about the UK law changes about organ donation and really what it means for all of us. So thank you for joining us, Kirit Bhai.
Thank you, Jain to everyone. And can I say thank you to everyone at Young Jains for this invitation to talk about organ donation. Jode is delighted to support this event, and I want to thank Reena Patel. I think she is listening at the moment, who is the Jode Outreach Coordinator, who has been working with Young Jains for several months. And I'm also delighted that we've got Prafula Shah and Jai Patel, who also amazing support for Jode. So Jode is a voluntary group of about 30 of us. If you look at our website, you'll see. So these are people who are passionate about organ donation and want to promote it in our community. And look at our website to see further details. So the purpose of establishing Jode was to really taking the lead within our community and to try and coordinate that. So we support organ donation at the moment, but we want to move on to stem cell and blood donation as well in the future, all across the country at a national level, as well as supporting local community groups. So if you could look at the first slide, Anuja. So we've already heard a little bit about living donation and also about deceased donation. So if you just, I don't know, can you just click it to see what comes up there? Okay, so there are two types of donations, as we know, living donation, and Prafula spoke so movingly about how you donate kidney as a living donor. You can also donate part of your liver as a living donor, although there are very few people who do that. But I want to focus mainly on donation after death. And there you can donate lots of organs. Yes? So you can donate your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your pancreas, and so on. And there's a list. If you go on the NHSPT website, you'll see a list. I think they say one person can donate up to 9 organs. So if you look at the next slide. So the law changed in 2020 in England. It changed in Wales a few years before. It's now changed in Scotland, and last week it changed in Northern Ireland as well. So I'm delighted that all 4 main countries in the UK will have this law. And the law basically says that this is for all adults, that all adults in England will be considered to have agreed to be an organ donor when they die, unless they've registered a decision not to donate. So you've said, I don't want to be a donor, or they are in an excluded group. And I'll mention the excluded group in a minute. The law is called opt-out. Some people call it deemed consent. Some people also call it Max and Kira's law. So they're different names. And the excluded groups are firstly children, obviously, under 18s, the law doesn't apply, or those who lack the capacity to understand the change, people with learning difficulties, for example, and so on. People who have lived in England for less than 12 months, so if somebody comes on holiday here and so on, the law doesn't apply to them. And those who are not living here voluntarily. So
18 years, something.
So this is for people like prisoners and so on, those who don't have an option of living in England. But in a sense, that's going to be less important because all 4 countries now in the UK will have this also. So if you look at the next slide. So I'm just sharing some data with you. Now, this is the latest data published by NHS Blood and Transplant. The numbers are very low. And the reason for that is they've reduced significantly because of COVID. Yes, because everything was affected by COVID, as you know. So if you look at the last financial year, there were 36 Asian donors from all Asian communities after death, and 36 living donors as well. But if you look at, there's a waiting list, which Prafula mentioned earlier. There were 725 Asians who are waiting for an organ transplant at that particular time. And it's also been mentioned, patients from our background have to wait longer for a transplant on average. But sadly, there's no guarantee you will get an organ from the list. So sadly, a number of people die while waiting. We move to the next slide. So the choices individuals have is firstly to sign the organ donor register to indicate the decision to donate, right? And Nithuben was talking about that as well. You know, they were talking about signing up. So there's a register where you sign to say, yes, I'm happy to donate my organs after death. Or you can sign a separate register which says, I don't want to donate. Because there's no pressure here. This is seva, this is a voluntary donation you're making, yes. So you can sign one or the other of the registers. But if you don't do anything, then the law will kick in, and the deemed consent or opt-out will apply. And the choice to indicate which organs and tissues you wish to donate remain the same. So as I was saying, when you register, it asks you which organs would you like to donate. Some people say, I'll donate everything. Some might say, oh, I don't want to donate my eyes. Somebody say, I don't want to donate my heart or whatever. Yes. So you have a choice there. So we move to the next slide. Sorry, just to make the last point. This is for normal organ donation. You know, the novel things like face transplants and hand transplants and so on, they're not covered by the law. So the choice, as I said, you have, okay, let's just pick up So I think we've covered that. Let's move to the next one, sorry. So how has COVID affected organ donation? As you can imagine, yes, numbers really plummeted because hospitals were so busy with looking after COVID patients, they just didn't have the capacity to do. But organ donation did continue at a much lower level, yes. The good thing is that things are getting back to near normal, not quite normal, but there is a backlog, right, with everything in the NHS, yes, you know, there are huge backlogs everywhere. So we are catching up. But clearly, if you die from COVID, you can't donate because clearly you could potentially pass COVID to your recipient. And I want to just briefly touch on the main barriers within our community. And it's interesting, they're very similar to what Kirpa was saying, because, you know, for stem cell donation, the biggest barrier is there isn't enough awareness within our community. Yes, and these sorts of events are the key ways in which we raise awareness. So that's number one. There are not enough conversations, and that's what I think Nithuben was talking about. People not talking about it within the family. Because as you know, even though you register, yes, the nurse will have the conversation with the family members, yes, and unless the family members support that, that organ donation will not take place. So family conversations are an integral part of this process. Religion is a factor for some people, although we've done a lot of work, and in fact on our website there's a leaflet we recently produced about the Jain perspective on organ donation. And I'm delighted to say that Jainism fully supports organ donation, and the religious leaders have openly encouraged us to do so. And then there are the myths, you know, the fake news and so on, yes? So I'll just give you a couple of things. People think about funerals, saying, if I donate my organs when I die, will I be able to have a proper funeral with all the ceremonies I want to do? Yes, you can. And the organ donation process does not delay funeral arrangements. The other one, sometimes you get funny things like somebody asked me at a meeting saying, if I donate my kidney after I die, when I'm born again, will I have 2 kidneys or will I only have 1? Yeah, so you get things like that as well. So sometimes it's just myths and I think fake news. So we need to challenge those. Then I think we're on the last slide. This is the call to action, really. First, the JOD website. You can register through that. Lots of information. Talk to your family. Obviously, help save lives. But the other thing is, I'm sure that, you know, there are lots of people listening to this discussion. Don't just keep it to yourself. Share it as well with your friends and family. And you know, social media is a very powerful way of sharing things. So share this information with others and challenge fake news. If you're not sure, if you hear something, don't just pass it on, but really challenge it. And the important thing is, from our religious point of view, I think Jainism is an amazing religion. And I think you know, we started with the Navkar mantra, and if you really understand the meaning of that, you will really say that we should do everything we can to save somebody's life. So, Anuj, I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Kirit-Bhai, for that presentation. I'm going to ask for questions to be posted in the chat bar, and then we'll come to them at the end. So please do ask questions, add comments. That'll be really helpful for our panel at the end. Our next speaker is Raki Shah. Raki is a kidney recipient and will be sharing her story. She works as an optometrist by background. We're really grateful, Raki, to have you join us. Can you tell us about your journey really with the search for a kidney donor?
Sure. Thank you, Anuja and Young Jains, for hosting this today. So basically, my journey started about 20 years ago when I was diagnosed with a condition called lupus. So lupus is an autoimmune disease that affects mainly young females with ethnic minority, a higher percentage. Gradually over the years, my kidneys started to fail because of the lupus attacking my kidney organ. And then in 2019, the doctors said that you need to start looking for a match for your kidney, as in the future you will need to go on either dialysis or on the waiting list. So that's when I started having the conversations with my family, my friends, my relatives, everyone, that this is my situation. If I don't find a suitable match, then I will need to start dialysis soon. Everyone came forward, my parents came forward, my brother, my husband, my friends. Unfortunately, no one was a match for me. So then we discussed with the doctors at the hospital, what can I do now? Like Professor Ben said, I joined a kidney sharing program, part of the Hammersmith Hospital. I was placed on their database. So my husband, my cousin, and my brother all volunteered to be part of the scheme. So I had a better chance of finding a living donor, which gives me a successful rate of living longer. But unfortunately, on the database, I waited approximately 2 years and no one was a significant match for my brother, husband, or my cousin. And then July last year, I received a call from the hospital saying they found a suitable match from the waiting list. It was a deceased donor. They just only give a very small amount of information. And yeah, I had my kidney transplant July last year. So it's been 8 months post-transplant, and I'm very grateful for their family for donating his organ. And yeah, very blessed. And yeah, it's working well. It's the initial first year is quite a journey. You're in and out of hospital having checks and things, but overall, I'm feeling good and very thankful for the kidney.
That's really lovely to hear. Really great to hear that you've had your transplant and you're doing really well and recovering really well. So that's great. It sounds really challenging having that long period of waiting whilst you're on dialysis. The unknown. Tell us more about that.
So basically, I was doing peritoneal dialysis, so it's slightly different. So I was doing it from home whilst I slept, so that I could lead a normal life during the day, go to work, which was fine, but it does limit there's a lot of boundaries involved, and especially during COVID, I was shielding because I came under the vulnerable group, so I was hardly socializing, seeing anybody. I had to be very careful. But I think it's just mainly having the conversations with family and friends and raising awareness of how important donation is. And like, especially in our ethnic minority, like Kripa said, that there's a very low percentage of people in our background donating organs. And if people did donate organs, then I wouldn't need to wait 2 years on the waiting list to find a suitable match. So yeah, it's really important that our community, South Asian, Indian, Hindu communities are, having the conversation with their families about donation. Because there are people like me who are very, it's changed my life completely now. So yeah, they can help someone live a better quality of life.
Yeah, I think that really highlights the point that in our community, we're really underrepresented on the registers and with organ donation. Actually, if you look at patients with dialysis or those on the register, we're probably overrepresented as a community, and there really is this mismatch between those that are in need and those that are able to support that. Tell us more about what were the challenges in talking about your health with family and friends, and really how did you overcome them as a young person?
So luckily, my parents and my family around me watched me struggle with my condition for the last couple of years. And I don't think anyone wants to be in that position where they can't help. So for me, everyone was well educated because they knew what I was going through and how it was impacting my quality of life. So as soon as I mentioned that I really now need to start looking for a donor, everyone pretty much volunteered. A lot of my friends were the same age group. So like Professor Ben said, if I donate my kidney, can I survive with one kidney and have children, have a family? So I said, yeah, 100%, that's not a problem. Many friends had even said that, can you survive on just one kidney? Yeah, you're born with two, but you don't need two kidneys to function. You can survive on one. And there's loads of thorough tests that the hospital carry out, like Professor Ben said again, you have good MOT check of your body. And if you're suitable, then they'll help you, and they'll look after you post-transplant, post-donation as well. So for me, I was quite lucky that everyone was aware of what I was going through.
Great, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. And if you have any questions for Raki, then please put them in the chat bar and we'll come to them later. So our final speaker is, which we'll move on to the next slide, is Jay Patel. So this is Jain Sinha and his wife. Jay is Ari's father, whose organs were donated when he was 3.5 years old. He's an ambassador for the NHS blood and transfusion team, and alongside his wife, Sinha Patel, and he works as an investment banker. So Jay, are you able to share about your loss and how organ donation came to be significant for your family?
Yeah, thank you, Jay Jananda. Thank you, Dr. Anuja and Young Jains, for allowing me to present. In 2016, Ari had a tragic accident, and I think I'll pause there. What I'll do is, it's easier if people see the video, and then what I can do is talk about our decision to donate Ari's organs, and I want to reflect on the legacy that Ari has retained with us. But more importantly, I think you've heard from some amazing people. Veer and Kirpa, thank you for sharing your amazing journey and story. Prafulaba and Kirpa, we know each other well. I don't take anything away from anyone that needs an organ, but there's one commonality within all of these stories. You have to make a decision, and that decision starts that journey. And so what you're going to see now is how Sinha and I made our decision and have impacted hundreds of lives through that decision. So why don't you take a look at the video, and then I can talk about some of the things I think people don't talk about when you go through this type of trauma, loss, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Let's get that video loaded.
He taught us how to be better human beings. He was only here for 3.5 years, but I can truly tell you that he achieved more in his life than I think Sinha and I could ever achieve in ours. I took the instant decision and said, please save every single organ you can. Allow us to donate his organs to other needed children. I don't think the consultant or the nurse expected that.
I didn't feel at any point any pressure to have to do it, and I felt I could change my mind.
The nicest thing about that time was they gave us 24 hours more with Ari. This is Ari's life, this wasn't our life to give. I kept on saying, tell us what you want to do, Ari. And maybe this was his way of telling us that, I've tried, and it wasn't enough. So I think we've done the right thing.
I didn't realise how rare it is for children to donate their organs. I thought it was quite a normal thing to do.
It's important that people think about decisions in a logical way, and that's why it was so easy, because it was really about Ari and what Ari would do to give back to others. His twin sisters have donor cards, and they're proud of having them. We have a lot of amazing videos, memories, photos of him, but this one thing I think helps us heal. It helps us believe that Ari life wasn't wasted. While we lost our little boy, he donated his organs and we were proud of that. And Ari, I'm sure, lives on in others. Maybe the girl that has his heart has the same smile.
Thank you for allowing me to share that video. If I take you back to 2016 and when Sina and I took Ari for a CT scan, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. We came back from the CT scan, and at 4 in the morning, I kept on badgering the consultant and the nurse. We'd spent 4 days trying to see if Ari would survive the accident, which he had on the Sunday evening. And unfortunately, the swelling on his brain was too much, and in the next 72 hours, his organs would start to stop or no longer work. In the video, I said that it was my decision. It actually wasn't. It was actually Sina's. It was probably the easiest decision in our lives that we've ever taken. We take more time to decide on what to have for dinner than we do about what to do for others when it came to our son, Ari. Sina and I have now been together for 28 years. We've been married for 22 years. And when I met Sina when we were 18, she's had her driving license. And I recall the moment that she said, "Oh, I'll sign the donor register." At that time, in that era, it was a card. It wasn't electronic, opt-in. And when you fast forward 20 plus years, I record that one conversation that we had, and Sina, on the day of Ari's accident, Sina actually asked me, she said, "Jay, would we do this?" And I said yes, and that was the only time we spoke about it. But I think it's important for people to understand what journey you go through when you make such a decision. I think Prafulla Ben mentioned that she had someone advising her as part of her coordination. So Ari has his own SNOD or a specialist nurse that takes care of him. Even to this day, a number of years on, Jo Cox still remains a true friend of ours, and she gives us updates on how the children that have his organs are. And I want to share with you something that's quite intimate that people don't want to hear and may not like. So when you decide to donate your loved one's organs, it doesn't matter if it's child, parent, cousin, son or daughter, brother or sister. The same process by NHSBT is followed, and there are medical professionals that are there to help those individuals, and there are medical professionals that are there to help when that decision is right for you, and they're completely independent. So we were never forced or never pushed towards it, making that type of decision. But we had 24 hours more with Ari, and this is pre-COVID. 150 people came to see Ari in hospital and say goodbye, and we encouraged anyone that knew Ari to do that. In addition, we were allowed to take Ari to surgery. We walked him through to surgery. His surgery took 5.5 hours, and there are in total 7 organs that were taken from him. But I want to illustrate on my body the cuts that Ari had. He had one here, he had one incision here. It was that big. He had one incision here. Oh, you can't see. Just below his tummy, and it was about that big. When Ari came back, he was lighter. We spent an hour with him. 22 of us in a room. Each of us put a sock. My parents, my brother, Sin's sister, it was dignified, and we said our farewell to him. I'll never forget that intimate time that we had with him. No parent should ever want to lose their child, but if this happens in any case, I think it's important that people think about what impact it can have. And Dr. Anuja, if you could share the
next slide, please.
But before I get to that, 7 organs were donated: his heart, liver, pancreas, intestine, bowel, kidney, and lungs. There were 2 children that received those organs. One girl who was 3 received his heart. She was 3.5. She had 1 month left to live. She had been living for 5 months on an electric heart, which was pumping outside of her. She had been on a heart machine since she was born. She is 9 years old now, and she is alive. 2 years ago, we received this letter. I haven't shared the rest of the letter, but we received this picture. Her mum had said no less than 36 times, "Thank you." This is from the girl that has Ari's heart. In addition, there was a young boy who was three years old who received 5 of his organs. Imagine how poorly a 3-year-old boy must be to receive liver, pancreas, intestine, bowel, and lungs. You really have to be ill to be in a situation where you need 5 organs. That boy is still alive. I don't know what his quality of life is, and I'm sure he probably has his own battles. But it was the first time in the UK that anyone that young had received 5 organs from the same recipient. Donor. So I think Ari himself broke ground. I share my story, and Sina does. She does it a lot better than I do. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't miss our son. But this picture alone proves to us that what we decided on the 24th of November in 2016 was the right thing. And a lot of people have talked earlier about Seva. I think, and I mentioned in the video, there is nothing that I will ever do in my life that will ever compare to the sacrifice that my son has made and the ultimate gift that he is given. And in that way, rather than go into a hole and never talk about Ari, I talk about Ari every day. His twin sisters talk about Ari every day, and Sina talks about Ari every day. We grieve. There's not a day that we don't grieve, but we also know that we loved every minute of time that we had with him, and I was grateful, and we are grateful to have him in our lives. So I'll pause there.
Thank you, Jay, and Sina, who's not here, for really sharing that really moving story. And I think it's stories like these that will continue to inspire our audience. And thank you for all the work that you do in really being an ambassador for organ donation. I know that would have been really difficult to share, but we really, truly appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
What I'd like to move to next is really questions and answers or comments. Please use the chat function if you haven't already. Our team's been compiling the list of some of the questions and comments that have come through already. So we'll have the full panel up if possible. We've got a few questions about stem cell questions, so those be careful, please. One of the questions which I think you did answer, but I think it would be good to share again, is what's the age limit around stem cell donation, and just sharing that a bit more about how people can then sign up again.
So in the UK, anyone between the age of 16 and 55 years old can register. So if you go to helpveernow.org, there are 2 charities, either DKMS or Anthony Nolan. Depending on your age range, you can click on the link and you can register. also, I'm not sure if this will be seen worldwide, but different countries will have their different registries. So there's more information on the website about that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying those ages. We've had a few comments to say, Kirpa, amazing journey. And then someone else saying stem cell donors should really be ready as it has become very necessary. And someone's also mentioned a bit about stem cells from placenta when you deliver a baby. I don't know if you're able to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a great deal. I know when Vera and Suhani, my daughter, when they were born at Watford General, they had said to me, do you want to donate your stem cells for research and I think for this need? And we had said yes at that time. But I have heard that recently that isn't happening as much in the maternity wards. So please, if you are pregnant, you can double check that with your maternity team. But that is another way to donate stem cells, is the placenta or through the cord when you are having a baby. So yeah.
Yeah, and I can say the same for mine. When I delivered my children in hospital, that was also an option, but it's usually an in-hours option, so a 9 to 5 option. So it's sort of partly depended on the timing of your delivery, if the stem cell nurse was around to be able to collect those cells from the placenta so that they can be added to the register with your consent or be used in research. So yeah, no, that's also a really great way to be able to join that. We've got a few questions on kind of organ donation decision, and someone's asked, my daughter and myself have opted for a full body donation for medicine. Is that a better way, or giving organs for donation better? Maybe Kiritbhai, you want to take that question?
Yeah.
So donating for medicine and research versus real organs.
I think, I mean, this question gets asked fairly regularly in our community, and that just indicates, the how people want to do something, after they die to help others. But I think that the two different processes. Yes. So for organ donation, as I explained, yes, you have to die in a hospital. Yes, and then your organs are retrieved, and whichever are suitable organs are then used. Yes, that's the simple process. If you leave your body for medical research, yes, then your body goes for medical research. Organs are not taken, yes, and then the medical research teams will use the organ, yes, mainly for training and research purposes. Yes, yeah. So there's no organ donation, but your body is helping take us forward in terms of our knowledge about our bodies and generally about our health. So there are two separate processes. And if you want to, my understanding is, and Anuja, you might know better, that I think usually GPs are the first port of call if you want to donate your organs for medical research. My personal view is this, that I've not come across anyone saying we need more bodies for medical research. Yes. Because one body, if you just think about our bones, yes, for example, they will last, a very long time, yes. So medical students and so on, yes, or our tissues and so on, they'll last a short time and so on. So I've never had any campaigns. You'll never hear a campaign saying, donate your body for medical research, yes. Whilst we know for organ donation, there's a desperate need, and we've looked at the data. And the other thing, this is a personal view, obviously, is that through organ donation after death, you will potentially be saving people's lives. And you couldn't have heard a more powerful story of that than what Jay has just highlighted.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think in part it does come down to personal preference around if there is a cause close to your heart, and if organ donation is your preference around saving lives, or if there is another medical condition that's close to your heart, then my understanding is you go direct to institutions that are able to arrange that for you. And I guess by contacting them, you'd find out if there is a need or not. But I think whenever we're all trying to do good, we all want to maximize the good we do. And therefore, I think Kiritbhai's point around where is the maximal benefit you might want to do. A bit like you might think about investments, I think about charity in the same way. Where do you want to maximize that seva, and thinking of it like that. So thank you, Kiritbhai. We've had a few lovely comments. We've said, Kirpa, amazing journey. very inspiring program. Thank you from someone. I can see some collaborations in process of someone saying that we want to create more awareness of stem cell donation, and Jord being keen to promote that as well, and hopefully work with any of our participants on that, or organ donation if you want to come forward. Congratulations, Young Jains, for hosting this very important topic. We all need to raise awareness about this. So lots of thank yous to our panel here as well. Broflaben, I know I cut you short a little bit earlier on your message for the community, and I was wondering if you wanted to just share that a bit further now.
Thank you, Anuja. And I think other people have referred to this and the importance of conversations. So I think, like the conversation we're all having here today, I think it's really, really important that we as a community have these conversations, we as families have the conversations, and then share our decisions with our families. I think in Kiripai's slides, he was referring to this. Neetu Ben, of course, referred to that in her presentation. And I think it's the single most important thing we can do right now is to have the conversation, support our work, follow us on social media, like us, because we want to get more and more people to share this content. And I think if I can leave just one other thing, this is about normalizing this conversation, because this isn't something out of the ordinary. Just here in this conversation today, out of the 56 people that have joined us, and many more on YouTube, of course, there are 9 people who are impacted by this personally. So this isn't something that is really unusual and only happens to some people. It's really important that all of us do this. And all of us do this because we are important to our communities. And both Hindus, Jains, and Sikhs, everyone believes in seva and doing good. And this is possibly the biggest seva that we can do according to our principles. And of course, Jainism, talks about anukampa and dan, and this is the biggest dan that we can do. I want to thank Young Jains again for hosting this. Conversations like this are really important to the community. So if others want to host them as well, the speakers who are here today will be able to support you. George is always here to support you. Anyone that is thinking of living kidney donation, contact me. I will be able to walk you through that journey. And there are challenges. I'm not going to pretend for 1 minute that this isn't something that is so easy. When I talk about it, people sometimes say to me, oh, you make it sound so easy and so really matter of fact. It isn't. There are challenges. I have my yearly checkups and I'm always nervous before those, thinking, is my remaining kidney doing okay? Thankfully, it is doing okay. In fact, it's doing the job of 2 kidneys right now. Please do this, because it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Broflaben. And Raki, I wanted to just ask you, for young people talking about organ donation, I think for some people it'll be thought about thinking about older people or older people with health problems. And I know age is just a number, but for someone who's a young person who's gone through this, I know you touched on kind of leading a normal life, and can you share a bit more about that and how you've normalized it for yourself?
Yeah, sure. So obviously when I was on dialysis, it's quite difficult. There are many limiting factors that I could do and couldn't do. Even like food restrictions, you weren't allowed to eat certain foods. And I think it does play impact on your family as well. They're very worried. And if someone is happy to give a living donation, then the quality of life is like, I'm living a normal life now. I can do things, I can travel. Before I couldn't go abroad because I was on dialysis. And just people around you, just bringing that positivity into my life and saying that one day you will be able to get an organ donation. And luckily with faith and the donor who gave me his kidney, I'm so grateful at the end of the day. But like everyone's been saying, it's just having a dialogue, conversation with your family and friends, and just really talking about it, and just seeing myself, leading a differently, normal life now, going abroad, seeing family and friends, I'm just doing normal things and I can return back to work without having any problems. I'm full of energy, which I wasn't when I was on dialysis. So, your quality of life has completely changed. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Great, thank you, Raki. And just final comments for Jay, really. Lots of comments around how your story is so inspiring, such a challenge, and to be so open about what your family's journey has been is really inspiring for a lot of people. I know you said the decision was very easy for you to make, and I think for some it might be a really difficult decision when dealing with that final moment. What helped you in overcoming that, and what might others be able to use to help overcome that moment?
I think when Sina talks about that night and early morning, she always put it in the context of, if we were in the same situation and one of our twins or even Ari was needing an organ, what would we think? What would we believe? And I think we transported ourselves into that mindset of, if there is obviously someone more needy out there. It wasn't anyone's fault that Ari passed, but we couldn't help him, but he could help others. And that's the way Sina and I thought about it. Mm. I struggled more. Actually, that decision was pretty straightforward, because we've had 4 days of the consultants telling us that they'd done everything they could and he progressively got worse. So it wasn't a shock to us at the end of that 4 days. It wasn't like he'd had his accident and we had to decide in the evening. And sometimes you have to make those decisions at that time. We'd thought through the process of whether or not he was going to survive, and we were told medically he couldn't. But I struggled more with telling my mum. So while at 4 o'clock in the morning I was comfortable making the decision, at 9 o'clock in the morning I really found it hard to talk to my mum. And the main reason was I had never spoken to my mum about death. I'd never spoken to her about, what do I do? Does this thing exist? Does Hinduism allow this type of donation, or is it something that we believe in? And I think in that way, when I told my mum said, you've done the best thing for Ari and the best thing for you. And that was enough. She was, my mum, who sadly passed of COVID last year, she always believed in Seva, and she was very religious. And so that's why I think a lot of people commented on having that conversation. There are different spectrums of religious belief that people have. And it doesn't matter, you don't need to necessarily be of a religious faith, but having that conversation is quite universal. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think we've proven through this and through the work that, myself and Professor Ben have done in the last at least 4 years that I've known them, there is not one religion on this planet that says no to organ donation. And not just organ donation, stem cell donation, like in every vein. There is no one's, yes, there is, I think, myths that Kiribai touched on, but there is no religious faith that says supposedly no. So yeah.
Thank you. And final words from Kira. Hi, and then I'll move on to close.
Thank you. I just want to make two points. The first one is about, Jod has been doing a lot of work over a number of years, as you know. One of the things we do want to do more work is with young people. So we're really delighted that Young Jains have taken the lead on this. But young people, across all communities and so on. So really delighted to have anyone who'd like to work with us. I think you've got to our website, we've got an email address and so on. So do contact us. We'd really like to do that. The second thing I want to say is that the Jain community in the UK is not a very big community. Yes, if you look at it, and I know this whole issue about census data and so on, but it's a relatively small community. But I think Jainism and the the spiritual thinking within Jainism is so fantastic that I think this is a community which can probably make a significant contribution to organ and stem cell donation, because that's what our religion is talking about. And one of our missions is within Jod. I was talking about people dying while waiting for an organ earlier. That we should get to a situation in this country that nobody should die while they're waiting for an organ. Now, that will take a long time. It's not going to be something which can happen now. But I think it's something we can achieve. My guess is with the change in law and hopefully we get back to normality from COVID, it's something we can achieve maybe over the next 10 years, something of that order. So I'd like to say to the Jain community generally, look, you have an enormous contribution to make. So as Prafula was saying, whether you call it step up or whatever, but I think, I love working with the Jain community because there's so much support we get when we talk about these issues. So I very much hope that we will continue this work with the young Jains in the future.
Thank you very much. And if I could just have my final slides, please. So thank you to all our speakers and answering some of those questions and comments. We're going to list some of the information links, including the videos that we've shared today. We'll also have them in a Young Jains email bulletin. So you can also take a look at those and forward those on to family and friends. This event is being recorded on YouTube and will be available to view afterwards. So, if anyone couldn't make it, then please do share it with them. Just our final calls to action. If we just go to the next slide. So for the stem cell register, as Kirp has said, join a register, DKMS or Anthony Noland, take a look at the age criterion, and it's really straightforward. You get something in the post, do a swab, send it off and join that register. For organ donation, after this event, go and talk to family and friends about it. Share what you've heard, share your thoughts about it, think about registering your decision. And for the wider community, think about a swab drive at work or events that you could organise. Hold a meeting like this to share information. There's lots we can do in the community to really mobilise ourselves to take more action for this. Next slide. I'd like to, before we end, just do that poll again to just see where we've got to from the beginning of the event to where we are now. So if we are able to, while we're getting that poll up, so on a scale of 1 to 10, really after this event, how well informed are you about stem cell and organ donation? And I hope we see a shift in where everyone is with it. So while people are putting in their answers, I'm going to use the opportunity to really say my thanks. I'd really like to thank all our speakers for taking the time and effort to really share their wonderful journeys and stories, really heartfelt. We really appreciate it and value you coming to share it with our audience and really leaving it for the audience to continue viewing. Thank you to Kirpa, Prafula Ben, Neetu Ben, Raki, Kirat Bai and Jay. We really, truly are very grateful. Thank you for the Young Jain support in the background who you won't be necessarily seeing on video. There's Ashik Pai, who's really the main driver for putting this event forward for Young Jains. So thank you. Other members of the Young Jains team, Vishal, Disha, Meghna, Nilpa Ben and Pavesh, and from the Jod team, Reena, for her support in the organising. So if we take a look at this final poll, we've got lots of 9s and 10s, so certainly 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s. So I'm really glad to see that hopefully we have shifted that where we are in our information about stem cell and organ donation, and hopefully that continues to grow by looking at the websites that we're going to share with you afterwards. For all Young Jains events, we always end with a forgiveness prayer, the Shamapna. So if I can kindly ask Nilpa Ben to end our event for that. Take the final slide.
Kamini savajive Save jiva kamantu me mitti me sav bhuisu veramajam nakire. May I forgive all souls. May all souls forgive me. My friendship extends to all, and my enmity is with none. Michami dukram.
Michami dukram. Apologies for being 3 minutes over our time. Thank you all for staying behind, for all our speakers and panels. If you do have any more questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat bar, and we're very happy to address them afterwards in the Young Janes email if there is anything. Thank you all so much for joining. We hope you found it informative.
Bye, thank you.
And thank you to Anuja for chairing so wonderfully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Young Janes, for hosting. Bye now.
And thank you for those who joined online. Hopefully we can stop the recording.